Dr. Price. Once again, I got an email from my Vincent. He says, "Hey Derek, as a big supporter of MythVision, I'd like to redeem my ticket to ask question for Dr. Bob the next time you're doing that. My preference would be that you read to him rather than paraphrase it. Dr. Bob, modern believers in heaven and hell think of these as places outside the physical universe. The modern mind is fairly comfortable with the idea of other dimensions or other planes of existence. Is this only a modern conception? In the book God, Heaven, and Har-Magedon, Meredith Kline argues that the modern conceptions of heaven as a separate yet coextensive dimension is biblical. He points to verses like Isaiah 6, where the heaven temple is identified as the whole earth. Also numerous stories in the Bible where someone had their eyes miraculously opened to see that some heavenly the very spot that they were standing in also contained some heavenly phenomenon. For example, Jacob's dream, or the heavenly warriors and fiery chariots surrounding Elisha in 2 Kings 6:17. Yet in other places, it sure seems like heaven was a place the ancients thought you could physically get to if only you could get up high enough. Let me go to the next. Yeah, high enough. Klein argues that it's just by analogy that heaven, meaning the place where God lives, and the heavens, the physical place above the sky, are described by the same word. Do you think any of the biblical authors had the alternate dimension interpretation of where heaven was? When did Christians stop believing it was a place you could, in theory, travel to? In his book, God, Heaven, and Har-Magedon, Meredith Kline argues that. So, and that was Vincent Dahmen, I say, D-A-H-M-E-N. Thank you for the questions. Dr. Price?
How do you spell Kline?
Kline is K-L-I-N-E.
I wonder if that's the Meredith Kline I knew at Gordon Conwell Seminary.
Huh.
He was an Old Testament professor and an arch conservative, but he's sort of like Dr. Fee, also at Gordon Conwell. He was conversant with the current scholarship, but in my opinion, he sort of twisted it a bit to vindicate like the Mosaic authorship, the Pentateuch, which is a lost cause.
Wow.
But it's interesting. So Kline, I hadn't heard of this book by him. He's saying that the Bible makes room for another dimension.
Yeah, like he's saying that Klein is trying to use the dimension argument. Oh, God's heaven and hell, there's another dimension. Whereas, I guess if you look at like the biblical account, maybe even compare it to other mythologies, that like maybe Mount Olympus is achievable. Like you could probably get there. Like, is heaven a place you can potentially get to in the Bible in some way? Well, Christians will argue, no, it's another dimension. It's outside space and time, or it's in an alternative dimension near us. So there's always some cop-out as to why we don't see any heaven or hell. We see neither. But that sounds like a Christian argument. And they say, well, the Bible merits such ideas as other dimensions. Oh, look, Elisha saw the fiery swords of the angels and chariots around the mountains, or whatever other examples you could give. Is heaven a place you can get to, though, is what he's saying, in the Bible. Not what Christians think of it necessarily, but...
I don't know. I mean, I'm the last one to want to homogenize the teachings of the Bible. They don't all have to have taught the same thing. So you could have both views. But it seems to me you could adequately explain the Elisha thing with the horses and chariots of Israel and so forth, in terms of these beings being hidden or invisible, but there they are, or insubstantial on earth. He maketh his servants a flame of fire, and so on. And so that wouldn't necessitate another dimension necessarily. And that's reading a bit much into it, I think, though it's not ridiculous, certainly not. But like Sheol, which envisions ghostly shades, they thought it was under the earth, and that you would go there eventually. I think there's so much indicating that their world picture did locate God up there, that when Elijah departs from the earth, he's in the sun chariot of Apollo and goes up. Why doesn't he just vanish? Why did Jesus ascend and not just vanish?
Yeah, he went to heaven.
And they did think that why were there tiers of heaven? That the first heaven is the blue sky, the second is the stars set into the firmament, and then beyond that you've got the cosmic ocean, and above that God has his throne. They seem to think that that was literally there. When they saw it in visions, that still doesn't mean it's another realm, unless you want to say it's akin to a dream world. But that's all. There's no reason even for the ancients to think that that is another dimension.
Is it fair to say, maybe in this vein, because this is interesting, that what we're actually seeing is they believed it was really there, right? An actual place that you could, not that you could go to, because in their head, it's not like they had an option of flying an aircraft to get there. But in the ancient world, it's probably something they believe was there, but they said no human or mortal is able to achieve that feat. I mean, now we're
unless
flying to the
God
moon.
beams them up like
Right.
Enoch and Elijah.
Or Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Is like Christians now realize, damn it, we made it to the moon. We need to do something about this. Oh, it's another dimension.
Yeah, I think what did it was Yuri Gagarin, the first cosmonaut, because he's of course a communist, right? So they're officially atheists, and he says, "Where is God? I don't see him." Righto, and I think he was. Some people say, "You idiot." Of course, that's not what we mean, but that's what the Bible people seem to mean. There's no up or down. The universe is inconceivably vast. It's more amazing than the Bible writers could have known. I mean, they were thinkers. They speculated. They were like the ancient astronomers of Babylon and the natural philosophers among the Ionians and all that. They were not stupid, but there was a limit to what they could know. And like the rainbow, how could they have known about light refraction? Absurd to suggest it. So they came up with the best thing they could. It's God's war bow, and so what the heck? Why not? Given what they could know at the time, and. So I think this shift to other dimensions is just an appropriation of science fiction ideas. Though he's right, people are giving it new respect now, and especially with the flying saucers, which are gaining mainstream credibility now. It appears that you just can't deny that we have extraterrestrial visitors. No matter if you think it's ridiculous, I think that's just because it's disturbing. And because if that is true, a lot of science fiction movies may turn out not to have been that fictive, and we only can hope that they're not like the Klingons. And I think even, what's his name?
I'm trying to get this scholar, by the way, that I don't know if he's a skeptic and he's probed into these things, but I'm looking for critics of it to see if this is like, what's going on? And maybe they have some insight. I'm being like, using a critical methodology, and I'm trying to say, what's up? Could this be something else? What do you think's going on? You know what I mean? And some of these people who've investigated that's stuff I'm looking into.
Yeah, well, go to it. But it seems to me that one thing that made me favorably disposed to the reality of flying saucers was the ham-handed government attempts to deny them. The arguments, the alternative explanations were so stupid. It was a weather balloon. Get the hell out of here. They couldn't even keep the dates straight. One crashed, but it wasn't the same day as the Roswell crash. And it's swamp gas. I'm not even sure what that would mean. But some people, in light of the fact that the great distance between us and any possible inhabited world is so vast, like you couldn't get to, through our propulsion system, you couldn't get to the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, in several lifetimes, at the speed of light even, you couldn't. And so they figure, well, maybe the UFOs are from another dimension. But I'd like to know, what is the idea of another dimension? I mean, unless there's some real explanation, that's just glossolalia to me.
Are we writing our own Bible about the current phenomena of extraterrestrials, and in 2,000 years from now we're going to laugh about it and say, okay, well, we didn't realize this, but science has shown us once again you can go faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
Or, you never know, like, what we could potentially make happen.
You can't bank on ignorance. You can't say, well, I'm sure we will never know so-and-so. Come off it. That's not the scientific method either. Yeah. You can't assume something is true, but you can't eliminate the possibility, especially in light of all of these accounts by Navy pilots and so on, that are they all hallucinating? They all take drugs before they take off? It's just ridiculous. And so I'm afraid this is one of those things, like Hume said about miracles, that if you're going to believe in a miracle, it better be because any alternative explanation would be even wilder. And I think that's what's happened. So maybe I'll be proven wrong about it, but it's not inherently...
I'm telling you, I'm going to try and figure something out. I'm going to try and see what...
Great.
I'm looking for the people who really... This is what they do, but we've gotten off track with the whole heaven. But
not really.
This is part... Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is kind of in the vein. I am interested to see what critical thinkers in this field say about it, and like how they're going to address this and say, look, the phenomenon that's going on right now, this is probably what's happened. And if they have an alternative view, I'm looking for it. You know what I mean?
Joe Nickel might be the guy to ask. He's a friend of mine. He runs the what they used to call PsyCop, part of the Council for Secular Humanism, a committee for the scientific investigation of claims of the paranormal. He has a chart, a cartoon chart, showing how aliens have been described by supposed eyewitnesses over the decades, and they keep changing. Mm-hmm. Or the shape of the vehicles, more like a blimp, more like a dish. What's going on? And he says, isn't it obvious that this is just the imagination changing? Well, it might be, but then again, what do you think accounts for their apparent denial of the laws of physics?
Yeah, I'm interested in looking. I'm going to look it up. Thank you, Dr. Bob.